What's going on, everybody? Once again, I have a big project in the works, and once again, I wanted to lighten things up with a quick little question. What if Quentin Tarantino was your dungeon master? Would you and your crew have a good time playing D&D if the campaign was a Tarantino movie? I'm going to look at 10 movies based on what would be the best D&D adventure. Keep in mind I'm focusing only on their potential for role-playing. What has a sound story structure, a compelling party of characters, solid set pieces for combat encounters? I'm not asking if it's a good movie, I'm asking if it's good D&D. I already did this with Zack Snyder, and I'm actually more confident about this list because I've seen all these movies at least twice each, whereas with Snyder, I had to do some research and go watch the Owl movie. Tarantino does provide some challenges, though, so I added 3 rules. A lot of these films involve one or two main characters. This doesn't really work for D&D unless you're playing a duet game, because you usually want a party of 4 to 6 adventurers. So, in cases like Django or Cliff Booth or Jackie Brown, we will be substituting in a handful of player characters where there is one protagonist. Rule number 2. Tarantino likes to play around with non-linear story structure in his films. Again, this doesn't really work for D&D. Yes, there is time magic. Yes, there is a flashback mechanic in Blades in the Dark you can try to transpose, and I have even heard of a DM writing up a 10-page flashback mechanic for his own D&D campaign with my friends. It never goes well. So in films like Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs, we will assume we play through the story chronologically rather than what is presented in the film. And rule number 3. Quentin Tarantino considers Kill Bill Volumes 1 and 2 to be one film, so that's what I'm doing for this video. Which leaves me in a tough spot because now I only have 9 films for my YouTube friendly top 10 list. So I am adding in a secret 10th film, and it actually wound up pretty high on the list, so you'll have to watch and see what it is if you haven't already guessed. This is a ranked list starting with what I think would be the worst or hardest to run D&D game and working my way up to the best. Here we go. I really like this movie. I really like all these movies. But Once Upon a Time just doesn't have that much going on. It's high on vibes and low on plot. There is an insanely fun action sequence at the end, but in D&D all it amounts to is some cultists and a staff of fire. And there is one tense sequence when Cliff investigates the cult leader's dungeon ranch. But aside from these scenes, this movie doesn't give us much blueprint for a real adventure. Heists are possible in D&D, but the system is more built for bombastic action without the subtlety on display in Jackie Brown. On top of that, the movie is mostly about the setup and not the main event, bouncing around between multiple perspectives, which would be hard to accomplish at the D&D table. It is a happy coincidence that this movie wound up ranking where it did, and I'm not changing it. Hateful Eight has a really nice setup and brings in an aspect of player versus player social deduction, something I've experienced from both sides of the screen to excellent effect. However, there might just be too many NPCs in Minnie's haberdashery, and while I think the film does a fantastic job building up tension to its bloody climax, in most D&D games your players will be itching to roll initiative so they can use their abilities. Reservoir Dogs is probably my favorite Tarantino film. It features complex motivations and mystery for all our characters, and once again delivers the possibility of player versus player social deduction as everyone in the safe house tries to weed out the rat. But that's about all there is to it. So much of the film works because of the great dialogue and stellar performances, and those aren't things you can rely on at your amateur improv table. There's also the issue of the botched heist, which would have the potential for being played out at your D&D table after the tips in the tavern scene, but because what goes down at the heist informs the rest of the plot, you will more likely have to contrive it and start in the middle just like the film. I want to believe in this one, and I might even try it myself someday, but I can't deny it would be a challenge. You might think this one deserves to be lower since it revolves around cars, but Death Proof's car chases can be easily replicated on the tactical grid or theater of the mind with carriages, chariots, hellfire engines, or even airships. Once again, here the plot is a little thin. It mostly spins out from 2 combat scenes, but I think that makes it perfect for a 2-session tutorial adventure. In the first session, you hand your new players some level 1 characters. They go to a tavern and try out some roleplay before being dragged into a dangerous situation where you land a TPK. Then in session 2, the players bring back level 2 characters they have made themselves, inevitably winding up in the same position as their doomed first characters, but with a greater likelihood of survival. It's not the flashiest, but it totally works. Pulp Fiction is undoubtedly a masterpiece of modern cinema. For our D&D purposes, it includes a fearsome dungeon, miracles of faith, a magical MacGuffin, another MacGuffin, a pit fight, dancing in a tavern, and rolling a nat 1 on your weapons check. Pulp Fiction's greatest achievement is also what makes it difficult as a model of a D&D adventure. You will need to detangle the interwoven anthology of characters to find the right story to tell for your adventure. But there's a lot of good to work with here, so it gets a respectable spot at number 5. Django establishes a backstory for our main characters as they are freed from slavery and level up as bounty hunters under the guidance of a wise white bearded mentor and discover an opportunity to save their princess from the clutches of an evil noble in a castle surrounded by minions with plenty of action along the way. Django Unchained makes for solid adventure storytelling. The only reason it isn't higher is because of one issue I have with the plot, and that is King Schultz shooting Calvin Candy and triggering the climax. In the film, this is a great moment. In D&D, this is the dungeon master stealing the player's agency with their own NPC. If you can find a way around this by changing the course of events or handing over the Schultz character to a player, I could see your Django adventure going flawlessly. Here is the secret film you probably guessed, directed by Robert Rodriguez but written by and starring Quentin Tarantino. This one basically writes itself. Your party of thieves is on the run and picks up a cleric and his halfling sidekicks before stopping at a tavern that winds up being a tomb of horrors. There are vampires and or demons, bards, magical weapons, holy water, gear up sequences, and funny banter, all ingredients for a perfect one-shot whether you're trying to appeal to newbies or grognards. In this case, our bride is going to be a party of bridesmaids. They have a common backstory as former assassins who have attained higher levels and are now on a mission of revenge to fight mobs of mooks, kill the elites, track down the ultimate villain, and defeat him in a final standoff. Along the way, they'll escape from a dungeon, explore the world, quest for a magical blade, escape from a trap, and uncover hidden connections between them and the villain. This is a fantastic adventure, but it's not number 1. Inglorious Bastards immediately gives us a party of combat ready adventurers with a worthy quest: killing Nazis. All of the fight scenes and hex crawling that the movie glosses over can be detailed encounters in your game. And there is an iconic tavern scene involving fighting in a basement, which may as well be fighting in a dungeon. But the reason this is number 1 is because of the secondary party of Shoshana, fleeing from Hans Landa and setting up her own dungeon to trap the Nazis within. Rotating between an A team and a B team of characters may seem like a difficult trick to pull off, but I've done it multiple times and it always produces a great effect. Your two parties will come together in the climax to hopefully take down the ultimate BBEG. And that's the list. Hopefully, this gave you some neat little idea for your next adventure. And if you're interested in a deeper dive into how you can turn a great movie into a great role playing adventure, check out my video on Saving Private Cobalt. Let me know in the comments if you would swap around my picks or if you want more tips on how these adventures could go down. Thanks for watching. Have a Nat 20 day. Bye bye.